Once you understand the major scale, you can improvise and compose music that you like. My experience as a music theory professor taught me that anybody can learn to do this. You just need to learn the language so you can understand how music works and train your ears so you can start to feel what's going on. It's that simple, and we'll go through it step by step right now. If rhythm relates to time, melody and harmony relate to space. We'll talk about harmony in the next video. For now, let's focus on melody. Melody is what happens when you play one tone at the same time, like a singer or a saxophone. Whereas harmony is what happens when you hear multiple tones at the same time, like a guitar chord, a piano piece, or an orchestra. Once we understand some things about melody, we can use that understanding to talk about harmony. Okay, first, some fundamentals. Let's place a note in our staff. Which note is it? Well, actually we don't know yet. We still have to place a mark to indicate which note we actually mean. This is why we use clefs. The first clef you should learn is the G clef, also called the treble clef. It's called the G clef because the way you draw it indicates one specific note in the staff, and that note is G. This is how you draw it. You place a dot on this line, and then you circle around that note, finishing it off like this. Let's try it again. You place a note, circle around like this. Circle around, make this loop, go down like this. Okay, this is the G clef, and this indicates that this note is G. It's called the treble clef because in music, when we're talking about how high something is, we generally divide that into three areas: bass, mid, and treble. The G clef is a treble clef because it lets us notate high-sounding notes. You can think of it like this. The bass contains, well, the bass. Mid contains the chords, and treble contains the melody, the part we'd actually sing. In practice, it's definitely not that simple. We don't divide things that rigidly because, well, it's an art form. You can do whatever you want, but for now, let's just conceptualize it like this. Okay, so the G clef lets us notate notes in the melody range, treble, but then how would we notate something in other areas? It's time to bring in the F clef, or the bass clef. You notate it like this, placing a dot on this line, which is where F is going to be, circling around it like this, and then placing two dots around the line that indicates the note F. So you can see G being placed here on top of that line, F being placed here on top of this line. Let's look at piano notation for a second. When we notate something for piano, we use two staffs. One uses the treble clef, one uses the bass clef, and they both work together as one. Typically the right hand plays this, the left hand plays this, and this is how we notate for both hands. Okay, so why do we care about this? Well, in the middle of this all, we've got the note called middle C. Now, in order to notate a note that's outside of the staff, we can use ledger lines. So a little extra line where you can place a note. And this is middle C. From the perspective of the G clef at least, because we go up from the F clef, we will place one ledger line, place a note there, and that is also middle C. So you could think of it as there being one big fat middle C in between these staffs. So ledger lines are lines that help us notate notes that fall out of the range of the staff. If we didn't have ledger lines, you'd need to know about 6 to 8 clefs, or you'd need to switch octaves all the time. It's very inconvenient not to have ledger lines. This is where middle C is. It's the C in the middle of the lowest and highest notes we can practically use. It's quite literally almost the middle of the full range of all tones in music, and correspondingly we noted it in the middle of these two staffs, although this is absurdly large. So that means each note we notate relates to one specific note on the piano, not a note that's one octave up or down, one specific one. So middle C is this, not this or this or this or this, or this or this or this. Alright, let's learn which of these notes are where in the staff. Okay, one way to remember which note goes where in the G clef is to remember face. This means the other notes are here. So face is the notes between the lines, and ekbdf is on the lines. You'll notice that the note F is at the top of the staff. If we are playing in an F clef, this one is ugly, then the note F is here, which means that once you know your notes in the G clef, you could transport them all down one line to get the notes in the F clef. Later on we'll just stick to the G clef, but for now let's look at the major scale first. Alright, the major scale. Now you might know that the key of C is seen as the easy key. This is because it uses only the white keys of the piano. Let's take a look. The notes in this major scale are simply C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's not the case for other major scales, so let's take a look at why. Let's take a look at the distances between the notes. When we're measuring distances, we're taking a look at the white key, or at the place where we start, moving up to the next key, moving to the next key, okay? Each step is one semitone. 2 steps makes a whole tone, 1 step is a half tone, we call that a semitone. So this is a distance of 2 semitones, one going from C to the black key, and one going from the black key to D, which makes this one whole tone. Okay, from D to the black key to E is another whole tone. However, between E and F, there's no black key. There's nothing in between there, so moving from E to F is one semitone. If we continue this pattern and calculate the rest, we'll find that. Pause the video, figure it out for yourself, and now we'll check out the answers. We'll see that these are the distances between the notes. It's 1, 1, half, 1, 1, 1, half. That recipe is the major scale. Starting that recipe on the note C creates the C major scale. But what happens if we start that recipe on a different note? The note we start on is called the tonic. It's the note that the scale is based off of and named by. So the tonic. In the key of C, the note C is the tonic. In the key of D, the note D is the tonic. In the key of F, F is the tonic. Let's take a look at the F major scale. Remember, to follow the major scale, we need to follow this pattern. 1, 1, half, 1, 1, 1, half. So we're going to do that from F. F, a whole tone up. We make it to G. G, a whole tone up. That's to A. So we have one whole tone, another whole tone. Now we need a half tone, a semitone is what we need now. From A up to B is a whole tone. There's a black key in between there. So we don't need the note B. That's not what we've got in the key of F. We don't have B. We have the black key that comes before B. This note needs a name. The black keys need to have names as well. And we use accidentals to give names to these notes. We've got the flat sign and the sharp sign. If you flatten something, you lower it. If you make it sharper, then I guess you raise it? I don't know. But that's what they're used for. If we take A and raise it, we will have A sharp. But if we take B and lower it, we will get B flat. The black key can have either of these names, depending on which scale we're in. We'll come back to that in a second. First, let's calculate the rest of this major scale. We've already got 1, 1, half. Now we need 1, 1, 1, half. So, B flat, up a whole tone. A semitone up to B, another semitone up to C. So we end up at C. Then another whole tone from C to D. And another whole tone from D to E. And then lastly a semitone from E to F. Alright, let's notate this major scale to see which of these notes we should use. We have the note G at this indicated line, which means F is right below. It's there. Let's notate the other notes, G, A. Now we're gonna have either A sharp or B flat. Let's see what happens if we take A sharp. And we have C, D, E, F after it. Now what we get here is 2 notes holding the same space, except one has a sharp sign and the other doesn't. What you need to know about accidentals is that they last for the rest of the measure. So if you were to have a measure and it would contain something like na 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 na, it could be A sharp, A sharp, A sharp, A, G. That could be that melody, and you would have to notate it like this. This mess you see here, that's an A sharp, that's an A natural. It restores the note to its original name, so A sharp becomes A again, A flat becomes A again, okay? This now says A sharp, A, G. That's one way to notate it, but there's an alternative. Let's look at that one. Now we've placed B flat here instead of A sharp. And this measure is now much simpler to read. It says B flat A, B flat A, G. You can see this descending motion here, and you can see this V-shaped motion here. The way it looks, just visually, represents what it actually sounds like. Now there are three rules you need to keep in mind when you calculate major scales. The first rule is to keep an alphabetical order. We went from the letter F, the letter G, the letter A to the letter B. We didn't stay on the letter A twice. And after the letter A we didn't get C. So there's always an alphabetical order. A, B, C, D, E, F, etc. Major scales have sharps or flats, not both. You'll see that if you follow one rule well, you'll be following the other one as well. And once you're done calculating a major scale, you can check whether your first note is the same as the last note. When we start on F, we also end on F. Okay, now let's do the G major scale. Do it for yourself first, pause the video, and then once you got the answer, see if I got the same thing. So G, plus 1 makes A, plus 1 makes B, plus half makes C. Plus 1 is D, plus 1 is E, plus 1 is F sharp, plus half is G. We've got an alphabetical order, it only contains sharps, no flats, and the first note is the same as the last note. This is the G major scale. You could calculate every possible major scale and memorize them, but I don't like memorizing things. You might not have noticed so far, but we've only discussed fundamentals, the things you actually need to remember in order to start talking about music theory. But I don't like memorization. I want to see the patterns. So in order to teach you to make every major scale there is, we're going to see just how little we have to remember and just how much we can understand. First, you'll need to know the number of accidentals within any key. But we're just going to remember the simplest few. C doesn't have any accidentals, and we just saw that G has one sharp and F has one flat. Well, D has two sharps, B flat has two flats, A has three sharps, E flat has three flats. Once you know which major scale has 1, 2 or 3 accidentals, you know all of them, and I'll show you why. There's an order in which accidentals occur. The key of G major has the F sharp accidental, right? When we move to the key of D major, it will have the F sharp accidental as well, plus another one. The key of A has F sharp, the same one that D has, plus another one. You just keep adding one. What you need to know is the first two sharps are F sharp and C sharp. After that, you can just follow an alphabetical order. Here's what I mean. After F comes G, so the next sharp is G sharp. After C comes D, so we've got D sharp. After G comes A, so we got A sharp. And after D comes E, so we got E sharp. If you wanted to create the key of C sharp major, which is rare, but you could, then A would be raised to B, creating B sharp. You see that F, G, A, B is alphabetical and C, D, E is alphabetical. You just need to know the first two, and then you know all of them. You can just follow the pattern. Now, sharps go up. Sharps raise a note and they go up. F up to G, up to A. The flats have the same pattern, it just goes down, and you need to know the first two that we're starting on. So we're starting on B flat and E flat. Before B comes A. Before E comes D. Before A comes G, before D comes C, and before G comes F. And this is all the flats that there are. Remember these two, and remember this, and you know all the major scales, and with all the accidentals, you know all of them. How? I mean, if I were to ask you about G flat major right now, how would you go about that? I'll show you. We want to know G flat major. Well, let's take a look at G major first. We already know G major only has one accidental, it's the F sharp. We already calculated that. Now, if we lower the tonic and follow the same formula, the same distances, then we've basically lowered the entire key. When you lower the starting point, when you lower the foundation of the house, you lower the entire house, right? So, what happens if every single note gets lowered? Well, every note that didn't have an accidental will now get a flat. And every note that had an accidental, that had a sharp sign, will now lose it. Alright, now you need to remember this. An octave, oct from octopus, octagon, this means 8. Okay? The 8th note is the same as the first note. So we have 7 different notes. What do we see? G has 1 sharp, whereas G flat has 6 flats. Together, that's 7. Here, one part of the scale has accidentals, there all the other notes have accidentals. There only are 7 different notes. So if these 6 now have an accidental, then there's only 1 left to have an accidental in the other version. Let's take a look at the key of A. A has 3 sharps, so first let's write down the alphabetical order. And now let's add those sharps. It's F sharp, C sharp and G sharp. There are only 3. Now, the alternative would be the key that doesn't have sharps, but the key that has flats. So A would become flat. It's the key of A flat. First, every note that didn't have an accidental will now have an accidental. And then every note that did have an accidental will now lose it. And remember, this is an octave. We already had that note, so it doesn't really count. We had 3 accidentals, and now we have 3 notes that don't have an accidental, meaning there are 4 that do. If A has 3 sharps, A flat has 4 flats. And that's what you need to know about how to make a major scale. Okay, now I will name a key and you will say how many accidentals it has, whether they're sharps or flats. And once you know that, you'll have to say which accidentals there are in this key. Okay? Let's try it a few times. I'll just ask the question, pause the video, think, come up with the answer, because I will blur out the answer myself pretty quickly. Okay? So, the key of D major has 2 sharps, they're F sharp and C sharp. The key of D flat major. The key of D flat has 5 flats. They're B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat and G flat. Okay, the key of B major. Well, B flat has 2 flats, so B major has 5 sharps. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp. And that's how this thing works. Once you know this, you can make the major scales, no problem. Wow, so we already learned how to notate notes melodically on the staff, and we learned how to create the major scale. Now all we need to do is discuss intervals, and then we'll be ready to dive into the practice and then into the assignments, and then we'll be done. So let's dive in. Okay, so far we've talked about the distances between notes, and those are the intervals. In order to talk about music theory effectively, we need to name these intervals. So that's it. I'll give you the names and we'll have filled our backpack with all the information we need for the practice and the assignments. First, let's number the notes in the C major scale 1 through 8. We'll just call the 1 the tonic because, well, that's the note we built the scale off of. It's the tonic. Now the name for this one is the 2nd. And the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th and the 7th. Ta-da! Okay, so why would we bother naming notes like this? It has to do with how we experience sound. Now people with absolute pitch, they just hear a note and know which note that is. So they hear ba and they're like, oh, that's in between a G and an A, like 2/3 of the way up to the A. Like they just know that. And for example, I think it's bird species that typically have absolute hearing, absolute pitch. We don't. We have relative pitch. It's like 1 in 10,000 people or something that has absolute pitch. Don't pin me down on that number, but it's rather rare. Relative pitch is the norm. So what does that mean? Well, when we hear a chord, we don't hear, ah, that's C, and then that's E, and that's G. What we hear is, oh, this is 1, and 3, and 5. That's a much more accurate way to name them. Because 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1 will sound the same to us in every key, okay? It sounds like this in the key of C, or in the key of G flat, or in the key of B, or in the key of G. In every key it's going to sound like 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, where it's going to sound different every time for people with absolute pitch. So if I get an idea for a song and I hear this song in my head, or I hear the melody in my head or certain chords in my head, I don't know which key I'm in. What I'm experiencing when I'm hearing an idea pop up in my head is, oh, we're going from 1 to 4 to 5 to 1 or something like that. It's in numbers. This is the most accurate and relevant way to conceptualize music for you, to think in numbers. Now, there's one more thing about these names. They're divided up into two categories, and the first one contains the 1, the 4th, the 5th, and the 8th, the octave. These are called perfect. So in the C major scale, F is a perfect 4th, G is a perfect 5th, okay? If we were to lower or raise these things, they would be called diminished and augmented. If you lower it, you get a diminished 5th, for example. If you raise it, you get an augmented 4th, for example. This is different for the other group, with the 2nd, 3rd, 6th and 7th. These notes tend to be different between major and minor scales, and we will get to that in a future video. But for now you need to know that these all typically have two versions. The minor and the major version. Minor and major being Latin for smaller and bigger. Okay, so a major third is from C to E. That's a third, it's a major third. The way it occurs in a major scale, they're all major. So major third. If we were to decrease the distance by lowering E to E flat, you wouldn't have a major third, but a smaller third. It would be a minor third. Okay? So that's how we mean that. In some cases, we can go even lower or even higher than the major or minor version. And in those cases, we can talk about a diminished third or an augmented 6th or something like that. It does happen, but it's quite rare. So then, why did we learn this whole 1 + 1 + half, 1 1 1 half pattern? Like, was that just useless nonsense? No, it's not. Because this lets you gain some intuitive understanding of how to create a major scale on an instrument, and it will give you some intuitive understanding of the distance to the next note. So, I mean, what if you're on the 5th of a major scale? What's the distance to the next note? Right now you would need to calculate a lot of things in order to get to the point where you know that is a whole tone, not a semitone, a whole tone, from the 5th to the 6th. And knowing that will help your ears pick up those sounds when they occur, and would help you find those notes on the guitar or the piano or whatever it is. It would help you find those notes. It might not sound like a big deal right now, but it will become a big deal throughout this playlist. So please keep that in mind, remember this pattern and practice it. Alright, so now that all the pieces are in place, let's apply all of it to some examples, and then I will give you the assignments. Remember the ABC song from last time? Well, you already had the rhythm, now let's figure out the melody. First, let's sing the major scale. Na 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 na. You can play this on your instrument as well. You can use a free piano app or whichever way you want. Singing is a really useful way to train these things. So we definitely use singing, but you might not be sure what the notes are supposed to be, so you can use an instrument to inform your ears which notes you're supposed to sing. First sing, then play the note. So your brain will get corrected if it makes a mistake estimating which note is supposed to come next. Na 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 na. That's na 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 na. A B C D E F G. Na 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 na. So that's 1 2 5. Going to 6 to 5. Na 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 na. 4 4 4 3 3 2 2 1. 1 1 5 5 6 6 5 4 4 3 3 2 2 2 2 1. That's what the melody is in numbers. And this is why it's so important to sing those numbers. You need to be able to sing numbers. I call it number singing. It's a very vital skill to just know 1 5 1 4 3 2 7 6 5 1. To just know which number you're on when you're singing something. That's a skill to develop. And so you develop this by singing major scales and playing the notes after you sung them, so your brain will get corrected. And playing melodies. Sing them first, then play them to see if you were right. Go note by note to see if you're right. And keep correcting your brain until your brain knows which note is supposed to come next. Okay, enough about that. Let's notate the ABC song. Okay, now if you're going to notate something, first play your measure lines. Put them in the middle and then in the middle of that. And you will have divided it into 4 measures And this is because the idea of going back and forth, the idea of dividing things up into groups of 2 or 3 also applies to measures. And so typically we have 4 measure patterns. Not always, we can break this rule, but often we end up with patterns of 4 measures each. So you could fill out this page with these lines to give yourself a framework to start notating in. First you place your clef. Then you'll place your accidentals. Right now we're not going to place any because we're going to notate in the key of C, but this will come back later. And you will place your time signature, 4/4. So what we already had was 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4. Okay? What we add to it is 1 and 5 and 6 and 5, 4 and 3 and 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Now we need to combine those things. You already know the rhythm, we notated this. We need to know what is the 1, what is the 2, what is the 5, which notes are these. So let's give ourselves a little cheat sheet. And let's remember that G is here on this line. And we're going to go to middle C, all the way down here, to place our first note. Because we're only going to go up from the 1. Up from the 1 to 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're not going to go any lower. So everything else will be happening within the staff. You've got 1 and 5 and 6 and 5. So this is the start of the ABC song. Then 4, that's F. F is here, 4 and 3 and 2, E and 1. This is the ABC song. It has been notated. We use the same rhythm and just move notes up and down depending on where we need to be. So this is now 1, 1, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. One more thing you need to know. If you're going to place several different notes, and they're all going to be connected up together, then the beam needs to move up as well. If you're going to move up and down, then you just take the first one and the last one, and you just connect those, and the rest will just have to conform. If you go above the center line and below it, then the question is, are you going to go above it more than below it? One note, that's a D, that's a C, these are A's. There's more above the center than below the center. So since there's more above, we're going to place them down. This note is lower, so we're going to draw this beam down and connect the rest up. Okay, so that's how you notate beams. Okay, let's try this again. This time we're going to do it in a different key. Okay, let's write it down in the key of E. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. E has 4 sharps. These are F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. Okay, do we need to keep these accidentals in mind? Well, we don't need to, because at the very start of your piece, you can notate all the accidentals that this major scale uses once, and they will last for the entire piece or until you change keys. So in this case, all we need to know is where is E, where's the 1, and one place you could find it is here, right? Because G is on this line, F is in between the lines, E is on this line. Just there, and then we need to go up to the 5th. So if this is, let's proceed, let's do it here for a second. If this is 1, then this is 3, and this is 5. 1, 3, 5. Because these would be 2 and 4, right? So if you see this, try to see that as a distance of a 5th. Okay? We need to go up from 1 to 5. We're going up from to there. You can sort of see that we're skipping a line, moving up to the 5th. Now, these notes are right on the center of the line. So whether you'll place the stem below or above is dependent on context. We know we're going to have this. We're going to have something above it, something below it. I think it makes most sense, because these notes are so close to each other, to draw these down as well. You'll also see I wasn't quite clear enough, but I made these stems end a bit higher than these, so the entire note, stem and beam and note head and everything, all moves up and down depending on the melody. So you would not notate this, right, where they're actually the same line. You want this. Make sure they're on different lines, so you see the entire note moving up and down. Okay, anyway, if this is where 5 is at, then 4 must be here, 3 must be here, 2 must be here, and lo and behold, we're back at 1. Okay, I made this one too long. If you noticed that, good job. Okay, one more thing. Let's notate some accidentals at the beginning of the stuff. Now, if we take a key that has 7 sharps, we would get this: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. Now the next one would be A sharp, and it would need a ledger line just to be notated. We don't want to do that, so we put it down here. And then we continue our pattern. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we move up to here. Now what you see is that there's a sort of grid to how they're placed consecutively. The order is specific. The way it's laid out is specific. You need to do this the same way every time. This is so we can recognize key signatures in one go without having to think about it, without having to think about it. In the case of flats, we get the same sort of grid, just a little bit different. It's a little bit tilted, so to speak, but it's still a grid. We've got the first, the second, the third, the fourth. They're all placed in order. None comes before the other, and they're placed moving down diagonally. Alright, we checked out how to figure out a melody using number singing and how to notate it using our knowledge of the major scale. Now let's practice this using the assignments. Alright, first some calculation. What is the major sixth in the key of B? And what's the minor sixth in the key of B? Also, what's the perfect fifth in the key of A flat? And what is the augmented fifth in the key of A flat? Second assignment, number singing. Start by singing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3. Switch them up, mix them up, switch it as much as you can. Try and become fluent in switching between all 3 of these pitches. And then expand your palette. Add, say, the 4th and the 5th. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. To be clear, use a free piano app or your instrument or any other way to check whether you're right. First sing it, then check whether you're right. At some point you're going to get fluent with just these few, like with the tonic, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. At some point that's going to be fluid, and you can do it. You can practice it under the shower, or while doing the dishes, or while doing anything where you don't need too much mental brain power. And then once you got those 5, try and expand it more and more until you get the full octave, and you can go below the 1 as well. So you go to 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 5, 8, 7, 5. 3, 1, 7, 6, 5, 1, 3, 2, 7, 1. You need to go up to the octave and below at least to the 5th, below the 1. If you at least got that range, that would be a really good range to practice. And if you do get to a point where you can just nail all these intervals all the time, add the black keys as well. So in that case you would get 1, 2, 3, major third, 1, 2, minor third, 2, 1, and this is the major second 1 and the minor second 1. You know, you add the ones that are in between. But you don't need to do that just yet, in case you're advancing with this and you're already good at it, start practicing that as well. But once we start talking about minor keys, we'll add this anyway. So, happy practicing! Alright, next assignment. Mary had a little lamb. Figure out the numbers of the melody and match those numbers to the rhythm we figured out last time, which was this rhythm. Now match this to Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Okay, that's the melody. Write it down. So we've done some calculation, we've practiced number singing. Now this next assignment might be the most important one of all. When you're number singing, you're actually improvising melodies. You're just doing it while you're conscious of the intervals, of the theory behind it. You're coupling theory to the music, right? You're coupling sounds and concepts. Now this next one is the most important one of all, because this improvisation needs to become a composition. Now remember, if you're a perfectionist, all you need is a melody that doesn't sound like you're an alien that's trying to human, right? It just needs to be a melody. Just come up with something and notate it. Play it in different keys, or guitar, whatever your instrument is, notate it in different keys. The best thing you can do here is to explore playfully. So try and come up with different kinds of melodies. See if you can come up with one that only uses quarter notes. It's like bum 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 bum. I don't know, whatever you come up with. And then try making one that uses like a long note and a few short ones. A long note and a few short ones. Bum ba da bum ba dum ba da bum ba dum. And notate that kind of stuff. Try and come up with variations. Just explore, be playful, come up with whatever. But write it down and make sure you know which numbers you're singing. So you're coupling the theory to the sounds. Okay, fourth assignment. If you're using an instrument, obviously you're gonna need to play major scales on these instruments. Whatever you're playing, play the major scale in every single key as much as you can. These patterns will be useful in practically all music you're going to be playing, because so much is based off of the major scale that whatever you're going to encounter in the wild is going to be either the major scale or related to the major scale. So having those finger patterns in your fingers, that's going to be really useful. You're going to want this. Besides, if you're going to practice number singing, being able to play along no matter which key you're in is pretty nifty. So practice playing the major scales on your instrument. And improvise on your instrument. Sing along with what you're playing, because this helps you couple everything together so it doesn't become just pattern running, but you're actually playing a melody. But improvise on your instrument and sing along if you're able to. I mean, if you're playing like a wind instrument, you're not going to be able to sing while doing so. But generally speaking, if you can sing what you're playing while you're playing it, it is by far the best way to become fluent with music. And you want to become fluent, that's what we're going for. So, practice the major scales, improvise in the major scales, sing along with everything you're playing. That's what you need to do for this assignment. If you're practicing this stuff with a friend, try and use call and response. So one person could be like la da 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 da, and the other person might be like na 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 na. And so they copied each other's rhythm and sort of copied the movement but use different notes. And it's like he's asking a question and he's giving an answer. And you can just go back and forth with that the whole time. You can do the same with your instrument. You can try to copy each other, or you can try to come up with variations on each other. Whatever it is you do, it's going to be fun. It's going to be playful, you're going to be exploring, and you're going to be exposing yourself to somebody else's brain. So it's not just what your brain can come up with, but also what the other person comes up with, which helps broaden your musical horizon. So really doing this stuff with a friend is incredibly useful. Do it. And so those are your assignments. We've got calculation, number singing, improvisation using your voice, improvisation using your instrument, composition using your voice. You could compose using your instrument as well. All you need to do is write down what you came up with. Just write it down. Improvisation and composition are incredibly important to become fluent with all of this. So dig in, have fun, go make some music. Because I'm giving the answers in like 3, 2, 1. Okay, did you do a good job? Well, that depends on how well you actually tried, because that's the only thing it depends on. I went into this last video, I'm not going to say it every time, but you can't force correct answers. but you can't force coming up with a good melody or writing everything down perfectly the first time even though you just learned all of this stuff. You can't force yourself to do it right immediately, but you can do it. And if you actually did it and actually applied yourself, that's a win. So good for you. See, your brain has an intent and then it produces a result, and it needs to match those as precisely as possible. And you're gonna see that while you intend to come up with a certain kind of melody, you're not always gonna be successful at that. And by failing, you're going to tell your brain, oh, this intent needs to be handled a bit differently. You need to do it in this way, in this way, in this way, whatever. And so you can search to match intent with result. But in order to do that, you have to be okay with failing. So that's why I'm hammering on this. I'm not going to do it every lesson, but be okay with failing. So let's check out the assignments. Calculation first. All right, time for the answers. In the key of B, you got B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp. G sharp is the sixth. And so if you lower it to get the minor sixth, you get the note lower than G sharp. That's G. It's not G flat, because G flat would be even lower than that. It's G. Okay. The perfect fifth in the key of A flat is A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat. It's E flat. Now if we raise the pitch, if we want to change this perfect fifth to an augmented fifth, it needs to be higher. What's the next note up from E flat? Well, of course, that's E. Not E sharp, just E. That's already higher than E flat. So these are the answers. So we have na 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 na. This note, na, feels like the one. It's na 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 na. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3, 5, 5. This is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So this in the key of C was da 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 da. Na 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 na. That's 2, 2, 2, 3, 5, 5. So that's. And so this now says na 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 na. And that's how you notate Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, as far as compositions and improvisations go, obviously I can't check them within this video, but I would love it if you have something that you would like feedback on. Put it in the comments, put a link in the comments, do something to reach out so people can help each other and I can help you. I would love to hear from you guys. Share what you came up with. So, a small recap. You've got clefs. This is the G clef. After the clef, you place your accidentals. And after that, the time signature. There's also the F clef, which looks like this. It has F here and this has G here. Although there are ledger lines that let you notate different notes, like middle C, which is right here in the G clef. Accidentals have flats, naturals, and sharps. The flat is this sign, the sharp is this sign, the hashtag sign. The natural is that thing. Right, now the major scale is a set of intervals that has a specific pattern to it that you can use to make that major scale. It's not a specific major scale, it's just the recipe for the major scale. Now if you want a specific one, you're gonna need a tonic. Like say D. And once you got D, you can apply this pattern to this tonic to come up with the D major scale, with one specific major scale. And intervals can be perfect or major minor. If you find these lessons helpful, subscribe to catch future lessons, and you're helping me out as well, all with one button press. We're practically done with notation. There might be some minor additions throughout the lessons, but for now you actually know how to notate music rhythmically and melodically in a staff using two different clefs. You could make a piano transcription or you can write down the melody that you came up with you can notate music. You just need to practice it, you need to get better at it. That's what the assignments are for, and I hope you keep at it. Keep coming up with melodies and keep writing them down. Keep coming up with rhythms and write those down. Because when you can do that, you can listen to a song, hear which notes are being sung. Oh, he's just singing 3, 2, 1, 3. I can recognize this now because I've done it myself so often, and I know that it's 3, 2, 1, 3 because I've sung that so often. And now I'm hearing it and I recognize it in this song. And now I can start notating the melody of this song. So that's where we want to go. Keep practicing. Now we've discussed rhythm and melody, we're going to move on to harmony in next week's video. If you're watching this fresh out of the box, I can't put the next video in this end card. But if you're watching it during the other 99+% of time, you can just click on the next one right here, or check out some of my other stuff, or just go make some music.